So quiet. Welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board of Education budget hearing meeting for Tuesday, May 6, 2005. And we start each meeting with a pledge to the flag, so please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we have two meetings. This is the first of two. This is the special meeting budget hearing for May 6th. And we need to approve the agenda, so could I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, a second?
Second.
Ms. Ford, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Next, we need to review the required annual meeting documents. So I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Morrison.
Yes, the official notice in the papers appeared at the very beginning of April. It'll run 4 times with a couple of weeks in between until it reaches just before the meeting on, I believe, May 19th is the last time it will run in the Observer. For the qualifications of voters, that has not changed, but I will read it just to make sure that everyone is aware. In order to vote in the school elections, you must be a U.S. citizen. You must be 18 years of age or older on the day of the vote. As far as a residency requirement goes, you must be a legal resident of the district for 30 days or more as of the date of the vote. And that can be as a renter or as a homeowner. You may have to show proof of residency if you're new to the district. And that kind of sums that part up.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. So next, we need to hear the presentation of the tentative budget for the 2025-26 school year. So we'll listen to it one final time. Mr. Forbes.
Thank you. So tonight will be the final draft of the proposal that will go to the voters in a couple weeks. Under New York State regulation, the districts are required to have a budget hearing. Although at this time there's not any ability to change anything within the budget, as the board has already adopted the proposed budget for a couple weeks from now in the vote. This is something that New York State requires each district to do the final information for the voters. So taking a look at what we have now, we have a few remaining unknowns, which are all potential future impacts to our tax levy. That would be the final state aid. Apparently there was a little premature in the announcement that the budget was getting close to New York State, as it's still not passed and they're still not passing bills. We don't have final equalization or final assessments. Those all come in the summertime and are part of your tax levy adoption in the middle of August. Proposed final expenditure, taking away this slide, the middle is the draft that the board saw at the beginning of the last meeting, and that should say 29 over on the right-hand side. But we did make some adjustments after that, so it was another $68,341 reduction, which took your budget increase down to 5.23%. A breakdown of the expenditures, because we took out $68,000 from the equipment line, that did raise the percentage in the budget of salary and benefits. You can see you're just a tad over 70% now. And you can see the distribution across each of the other major expenditure areas. How do we get there? These are all the areas that we cut from the initial footprint in late January, and the only adjustment on this would be the $68,000 again of the equipment. Salary and benefits make up 5.09% of the total budget. You can see the instructional side is 4.1, the non-instructional side is 12.1. Part of that, which I think I mentioned along the way, is the increase in the number of aides we had, and also we have a contract negotiation going on with one support unit, and we have to compensate for a potential addition there. In this budget draft, there are the resignations on the instructional side of 5 teaching positions in the high school principal. We have budgeted to replace all of those, and also 5 of those individuals were eligible for staff retirement incentive. You may have wondered along the way why we didn't have any information up there for our non-instructional, which is our head of maintenance and head of custodian. Essentially, with the restructuring of that department and the salaries necessary to get those positions replaced, it's about a wash with what they had going out. Salary and benefits, we took a look at these multiple times. No real changes there because we didn't change any other equipment. Biggest increase is New York State teachers' retirement, which is a mandatory increase to 10.11% on 24-25 salaries, which represents a 7.9% increase. Equipment, materials, and supplies, with the adjustment, we are now slightly below the 24-25 budget, so negative 2,000 or negative 2% there. Overall, a 9% increase in equipment, materials, and supplies. Contractual expense in BOCES services, we're up 2.22%, 2.5 in BOCES, which is our high-cost special education, all the computer services, instructional and non-instructional, that the district receives, plus things like alternate education, some of the things like Audubon for the elementary school. So a wide variety of services there, and we're up 114,000. Debt service and interfund transfers, this is the principal interest on all district borrowings, not including the forthcoming Proposition 1 project. You can see that at the bottom of the page where we did have to earmark $395,000 in the 25-26 budget for the first principal and interest payment on that. There's no revenue offset because we don't get that till the subsequent year, because it is a categorical aid where you have to spend it in one year to get it in the next. Proposed revenue summary, the only difference on this page would be a result of the change on the expenditure side, which would be a reduction in your tax levy by the $68,000 for equipment. So you can see at the bottom that change, the state aid percentage slightly up to 50.55% of our budget comes from the state, and 45.92% comes from our tax levy. And you can see, taking a look at the bottom, from 21-22 forward, that is the lowest amount of the tax levy as a percentage of the budget in those 5 years. The breakdown of revenue, 45.92 is shown on the last slide. School tax levy, you got 50% for state aid. Federal aid and local sources, things like interest income, non-resident tuition, make up a small percentage of the budget, and the remaining 1.96 is the amount that we've assigned as appropriated fund balance. In this budget, there is a capital outlay project for $100,000, which will be field work at the Main Street campus on the athletic fields. Also, classroom floor replacement in the elementary school, required New York State architect's fee. And a reminder, the district does receive 82.7% back on the total cost of $100,000. In order to do any work outside, we do have to do the $10,000 of inside work. We had this slide up for a few of the presentations, just a reminder of some of the services that we do share or participating in co-ops. So, of course, our utilities, electric, natural gas. We buy our district fuel through a cooperative agreement with Village of Fredonia. We share services with districts for transportation, special education, and also art. The tax levy limit is commonly known as a 2% tax cap, although it is not, because districts have the ability to apply various exclusions. In our case this year, our tax levy limit was 4.65%. The draft before you is 2.59%, so we are in compliance with the tax levy limit, and we are not seeking a 60% plus majority vote for that. If our budget is defeated twice, we have to be in compliance with the administrative cap, which is 11.51%. The district is currently $9,178 under that cap, and therefore in compliance should the need arise there. This slide shows the tax levy limit in comparison to what our actual tax levy has been going back to the initiation of that in the 2012-13 school year. Our 10-year average, with the 2.59 this year, our 10-year average is a 1.33% increase in taxes over 10 years, and a 5-year average of 1.71. And you can imagine how that relates to your own budgets at home in terms of what's gone up over that time period. In comparison, the tax levy limit was 2.29 over 10 years and 2.40 over 10 years, so you can see that we're a pretty good amount below in each of the 5 and 10-year looks at that amount. The X's on the right-hand side represent the years in which we were below the cap, and in all years we did not exceed the cap and did not need the 60% majority vote. Our comparative tax levy, just to show how done, had a number of years where you're between 0 and 1, and then the last couple of years, of course, a little bit higher than that. You're at 2.59% on this. And a reminder that in that 2.59%, 1.9 is the previously approved Proposition 1 for the upcoming capital project. And finally, comparative budget data. With the adjustments we made since the last meeting, you're at 5.23% on spending, or $38 million, 336,005 budget.
Thanks, Mr. Forbes. Any final questions from the board?
There is something I'm curious about. Why is it so high, our tax levy limit, the 4.65?
Good question. Tax levy limit is based on a couple of things. Each year you take a look at changes in the employees' retirement system and the teachers' retirement system, And if there's a significant change, you're able to apply exclusions against your levy. So this year, that wasn't applicable, but it has been in the past. You also have to take a look at any pilot agreements, payment in lieu of taxes that you have, any lease arrangements, which for us is essentially copiers in the offices, and factor in both current year and next year. And then you also take a look at the same for debt service, for what you're paying on interest and principal, and what you receive in state aid. All those things combined then go into the formula where you have a growth adjustment from the state and also the CPI adjustment. In our case this year, the 4.65 resulted because of the 325,000 additional, or 395,000 additional that we had to apply for the project, which then changes the proportion of your debt service, and that bumps it up. So it's very possible in some years you might be at 0 or close to it, some years you might be at 4.65, just varies based on all those factors.
A lot of factors.
Yes.
A lot of factors. You know your stuff, though. That's good. Any other questions?
No, if you could just speak again, I know we talked about this, but looking at the average inflationary rate over the last 5 years at 3.3%, including 22 at 8%, 23 at 4.12%. Obviously, that means it's harder and harder for us to purchase the things that we need to purchase because our dollars don't go as far as they used to, correct?
Correct.
In addition to that, we are seeing increased things like fuel costs are higher, labor rates are higher. How do you factor that stuff into creating a budget that at the moment is, you know, a 2% effective tax raise? Like, how do you balance that? Like, what work goes into that?
Well, obviously, we've been talking about this now since the middle of January. I have to tell you that probably within the last 10 years, this was by far the most difficult. We've had numerous conversations with the administration. Dr. Greenox, almost every day, we're talking about different things we can do. And we had factors that we don't normally have. We have 2 labor contracts coming in. We picked up all the positions in the American Rescue Plan last year, which now you have to carry forward. And obviously, everything else is going up. So we were fortunate that we got a decent increase in state aid, which helped. Obviously, we've trimmed the surplus items that may be fund balance in some years below where there's a comfort. And all those things together hopefully will get us through to where we have to be for next year. But a path that you're on right now is not a good path because we've had the decrease for a wide variety of reasons that we talked about, decrease in fund balance over a 4 or 5 year period, and now we're basically been maintaining it. And at some point, as you know, you have to buy things, you have to fix things, you have to build things. And that's where we are right now. So it's going to be a challenge likely for the next few years moving forward unless there's some significant change.
And then just as a follow-up, I know it was in the slide, but can you talk about the increases that we've, as a board, this district has asked of the taxpayers starting in 2020? Is that 1% increase? Do you have that information?
In terms of the tax levy?
Yeah, the tax levy. I apologize. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look going back, so if you take a look at this, you're really looking at 1 year since 2012-13 that you've been over 3%, and only 2 years that you've been over 2% over a 10-12 year period. And so the board has done a good job in taking into account the taxpayers and the situation in the community to try to keep it as low as possible, which is a good thing to do, obviously. At the same time, each of those years that you trim a little, trim a little, trim a little, then it narrows what you have for fund balance, it narrows what you can do with applying to reserves and things of that nature. It's all, I mean, it's all part of the process that you go through. That's where we are.
Thank you. Any other questions at all, or? Good. Yeah, it's difficult also to approve, for us to approve a budget when the revenue, the state aid is a moving target. We have no idea the exact number we're gonna get, so.
Yeah, and the real thing is that it's different for schools than other municipalities and counties and towns and all that stuff, because you are limited in the fact that the only way that you can get something big is you have to ask for it and have it voter approved. And realistically, if you had a huge ask on a 10, 12, 15% increase in taxes and the ability to vote on it, you yourself might not vote on it because you have the ability to do that, where other entities don't. So that brings you down to, how do you build revenue? You don't have many choices. 50% is state. So if the state levels out, that's off the table. You can't increase the tax levy without going over 60%. So essentially that takes that off the table, because really, unless you had something really significant to propose to the community, you're going to want to try to keep that in a relatively nice place, which is what we've seen over a long period of time. So that leaves you with essentially 2 or 3% of your budget, which is made up of fund balance and local sources. And what are the local sources? You have tuition, that's been pretty stable. You have interest income, that's been good. You have things like Medicare reimbursement, which varies year to year, but it has been helpful in revenue. But you're not going to gain a lot from admissions to sporting events. You're not going to gain a lot in additional rent at Wheelock School, because that's just a factor of how the finances are. So you're kind of pigeonholed into what you can do, and that's the nature of the school districts, because you can't increase it arbitrarily.
Yeah, that previous slide tells the story. Over the years, 1.3, 1.7 in the last 5 years, with inflation, 8%, 4%. It's a tough job. It's a tough, you have a very tough job balancing budgets. This was a difficult year.
Yeah, and as we talked about, from the perspective of my job, I would always say go to the tax cap. But that's not the perspective the board and the superintendent have. They have to say what is reasonable for the community, what is reasonable to keep us going in the district, and it's a different look at it.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Mr. Forbes. Let's move on. Next we hear from the public on the proposed budget. Board's allowed this time to hear questions from the public on the proposed 25-26 budget. Individuals or groups are asked to limit your comments, please, to 5 minutes or less, and state your name and address. Anybody would like to comment tonight on the budget? Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Shields. I live at 227 Seymour Street in Fredonia. I've lived in this community since 1985. I realize, listening to your presentation, that you take great pains in putting together a budget. I was an administrator myself at one time and had to put together a budget, and I know how difficult it is. And I see that you have a number of shared services. I know in the past, Fredonia has tried to consolidate with other schools, and I don't see our economic situation getting any better. As you've said yourself, it's going to become increasingly difficult to put together a budget. I know for this budget it's too late for what I'm saying to you, but in the future, I'm wondering if you would give consideration to consolidating with another school. I know Brockton was one that you tried to consolidate with in the past, and it was shot down. I'm hoping that in light of most school districts being in the situation that you're in, maybe they would give consideration to it now. In the past, one of the issues that people objected to was having their high school teams, and kids from other districts felt, oh, we might not get playing time or things like that. Well, now it's hard to put together a team from one school district. So I'd like to think that maybe that is not so much an issue anymore. But you look at the population of Chautauqua County, it's not getting bigger. We have 18 school districts in Chautauqua County, which for about 7,500 students throughout the entire county. I would hope we would give further consideration to consolidation of schools.
Thank you, Ms. Shields.
And I would be happy to serve on a committee if you decided to do that.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing from you is you'd like us to consider consolidation in the future?
Yes.
Not this budget, obviously, but
Obviously you can.
future budgets.
Yeah.
Just on teams, we do field almost every team, but other schools can't. We usually, correct, Dr. Ziliak, we do
The vast majority.
Yeah, but we do accept teams from other schools that can't, if we can feel, it doesn't impact our teams, so, but.
Well, I know that was one of the objections in the past.
Sure.
The kids were fearful that if they went to a bigger school like
Yes.
Fredonia, they wouldn't have the opportunities to play.
Yeah.
And there was the whole identity issue, people identify with their communities, and I understand that. But I think we're kind of at a point in time where we need to think differently and maybe consider consolidation of services.
Great. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak to the board? Ms. Stace? Sorry,
You know my
I
name.
gave your name already. Just your address, Ms. Stace.
I can't be right back there in the book stacks. Okay. My name is Mary Days, 4422 Osborne Road. So I don't wish to be here. I have plenty of things to do, but I feel compelled to be here. You know, I've come to some meetings, and I don't mean to be a rabble-rouser or be adversarial, but I do feel compelled. And my intent was, after last week, is after the public comment, I meant to put my stopwatch, you can't really answer back. So I thought I would write a letter and just state my purposes again as a summary. The week escaped me and I only did it late last night. So I have this letter to read to you as a matter of record, and I will email it to you after the fact. But if you would allow me just to indulge, very briefly, of a little bit of nostalgia of why I speak the way I do. So why I'm here is, in this area, Western New York, is my family goes back to 1850 here, okay? The Erie Canal was built, the Erie Railroad kind of ended in Dunkirk for a while. I envisioned my ancestors saying, well, let's settle here, okay? But that's how far it goes back. One of the first churches, one of the first schoolhouses, St. Mary's on the lake, okay? So, but come back now to over, 100 years later, I'm here. My 4 brothers and I were born and raised in Fredonia. So we are long standing here. We're not carpetbaggers, we were here, they were deeply rooted here. I have to say that my brothers and I did not attend Fredonia Central School. We attended one of the local parochial schools. At that time, for the people who are new here, Mr. Forbes might know, there were at least a dozen parochial schools here, Dunkirk, Fredonia, Take Silver Creek, teeming with students, so much so that we had our own basketball league, okay? Now, as a parochial student, we didn't know the bells and whistles we didn't have, we just knew what we had. I remember once every other Friday getting a manila sheet of construction paper, and that was our art. It was like, and we were happy to do it. Sometimes we get pieces of paper with printing on the other side that we would use. I don't know, maybe some industrious teacher even got castaways from the public school and that, I don't know. Then my brothers and I went to Cardinal Manzoni High School, the local parochial school. Again, we didn't have bells and whistles, we certainly didn't have a swim team, we didn't have a pool. But we got by with what we had, and Manzoni produced a lot of wonderful, fine, competent graduates. And you might call it, we had a classic education. Well, obviously you need money, but we made do with what it was. And as students, we didn't know what we didn't have. But classical education, where we went on to many fine places. It's what you do within the walls and your humble circumstances where the student achievement is. As many kids back in the day, we had to, spread our wings. My brothers and I were able to go to private schools, not by any money my parents had. It was through scholarships and things. I personally went to St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Indiana. Okay. Then I lived in New Jersey a while. I had gotten married very soon, and then all my children were born in Colorado, which is where my teaching profession took off, kind of thing. But in a desire of the concrete jungle that was becoming, we wanted a more rural lifestyle. We chose here because it's all I knew. But this is a very uncomfortable thought that I have now, is if I could go back in time, would we have chosen here, New York State? It's so problematic, and the taxes are just becoming so burdensome that I don't know that we would have, and it makes me very uncomfortable to even think that. Certainly younger people are going, and with the increases in taxes, they're getting their exit strategies together, they really are. And so it's just kind of that sad scenario. We don't want to move, okay? We like where we live, we're older, we have beautiful property, but I have this vested interest of all these ancestors behind me to make it a viable place to live. We don't want to move, we don't want to be in that position. So that's just my walk down a little bit memory lane a bit. I'm not a carpetbagger, we have a vested interest in the area. So this is the letter. I have a little bit of time left, of the letter, and I will get to. So it's to Fredonia Central School Board. I have been attending board meetings in an attempt to provide input regarding the tax burden on residents, how to reasonably minimize it, and to encourage various actions to at least investigate, if not improve, some of the district's challenges and problems, many of which I am aware of from working in the district 26 years before my retirement last June. While I am bold enough to speak out, it is discouraging that I am viewed as an adversary by some people, including some within the teachers' union leadership and ranks, and most likely some administrators and board members. The budget vote is nearly upon us, so in summary, our points I have made in prior communications, and due to inaction, is why we'll vote no on the budget and encourage others to do the same. 1. Do not replace retiring teachers. I know I've stated this before, but it's a matter of record. Enrollment doesn't warrant it. There are only about 64 students or so in the current pre-K. Staff could also be redistributed at the 5-6 level to accommodate one less teacher. Retiring teachers are at the top of the pay scale, which means together with their added benefits could save the district well over $200,000. That alone would have reduced the district's budget. There will come a time when you will have to lay off teachers. If you took this action this year and on my retirement last year, you would have saved 3 teachers' jobs at the other end when it comes time, and even last year when there were 3 elementary teachers or whatever it was. That's a good thing. I'm saving jobs down the road. The budget hasn't even gone up for a vote yet, so how is it that the union says, quote, every building will maintain the current FTA positions? At some point, you're also going to have to think about the taxpayer expense of being top-heavy with too many administrators. At the last board meeting, I quoted some comments from the meeting I'd missed, one of which included the superintendent, quote, cautioned against cutting any of the positions, especially without further evaluation. I am at 5:30. I will continue later at that point in the letter.
Sure. Well,
Okay.
no. There's 30 seconds to wrap up. If you'd like.
I'll wait. Thank you.
Okay. But you'll send that to us?
Yes, but I will continue my letter in the second public portion.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else like to speak to the board tonight on the budget? Actually, Ms. Days, the regular session doesn't have the budget, at the end.
For anything, right?
At the end.
Okay.
Got it. Next, we'll hear the report on items to be voted upon at the special meeting of voters. Turn it back over to Ms. Morrison.
We have 2 items on the ballot for this vote, the budget amount. As you can see stated in the agenda, $38,336,005. And we have 1 name that appears on the ballot for the 1 available seat on the Board of Education, and that is Kevin Martin.
Great. Thanks in advance to Mr. Martin for volunteering his time
Exactly, yes.
to the board. That's fantastic. Okay, finally, we need to approve the proposition to be used in the voting machines for the 2025-26 school year budget vote on May 20th, 2025. It'll be resolved that the Fredonia Central School Board of Education will expend a budget amount not to exceed $38,336,005 for the 2025-26 fiscal year and levy necessary taxes therefore. Could I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So moved.
Mr. Marshall, a second?
Second.
Ms. Hahn, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. So that wraps this one up. So we will now recess the special district meeting until May 20th, 2025 at 2 p.m. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
I'm sorry.
So
This-
Oh, were you ready for him?
I was. Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's the end of the first meeting. Now we move right into the regular meeting. We're not going to have any break, but if you were here just for the budget and don't want to speak in the second half, you're free to go, and thank you for coming. But we're going to move right into the second meeting now, and that's the regular meeting for Tuesday, May 6, 2025. Already done the pledge, so I don't have to do that again. I passed that. And we'll go right into approving the agenda for the regular meeting of May 6, 2025, including personnel and new business, excluding item A in new business. We didn't have any extra addendums or anything, did we? Okay. Have a motion to bring that to the table? Mr. Marshall, a second.
Second.
Ms. Forta, you all have busy jobs tonight. Is there anything that you'd like to, anybody would like to have pulled out of consent tonight? You good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And now we're moving into our first public session for the regular agenda, and it's the same as what I mentioned earlier, and that it has to be directly related to the agenda of this regular meeting. Does anybody like to speak on this agenda at all? We have a lot of students here tonight, that's good. Welcome. All right, well, we're going to bypass that and move right into approving the minutes of the last meeting, regular meeting of April 29, 2025 is submitted. Could I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So moved.
Ms. Forta, a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going too quick here. Well, that moves us right into our presentations. We have two presentations tonight. The first one is by Mr. Bennett. So, Dr. Zoliaks, any comments?
We're going to start with Ms. Farrow, if that's okay.
Oh, we're going to start with Ms. Farrow, okay. There you go.
So yeah, each year, Mrs. Farrow is nice enough to come and give us an overview of all that is special education, and everything going on with our program. So thank you for preparing this for this evening, and we appreciate you taking the time to share information with us.
Well, thanks for allowing me the opportunity tonight. I'm hoping I can get this clicker to work the right way.
Aim at the computer.
I have to aim it at the
Yes,
computer.
side button.
Which one? That one. Yeah, that's what I tried.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to.
In that case,
All right.
I'll be your clicker.
You do, but go
I'll be
back
your-
one slide.
Yeah.
You skipped one. Okay,
I'll be your clicker.
so, Special Education's roadmap is the New York State Education Department blueprint, which is here for you, and it is focused on 7 core principles. 1, self-advocacy. 2, parent partnership. 3, access to the general education standards and curriculum for students with disabilities. 4, research-based and high-quality instruction. 5, multi-tiered systems of support that include both behavioral and academic supports. 6, inclusion, and 7, career development and work-based opportunities. There are, including preschool special ed, school-age students with disabilities, and 504 eligible students with accommodation plans, a total of, and this is a year-to-date figure that was from April 30th, 409 students with disabilities in our district. That represents about 25% of our total P-12 enrollment. So drilling down to just school-age students with IEPs, our special education classification rate is slightly over 16% right now. Chautauqua County stands at 17% and New York State at 19%, and that is based on the state data that's available on the state ed website. By way of distribution, across the 13 special ed classifications for school-age students with disabilities, 77% of our students are identified in 3 areas most predominantly. That would be learning disability, speech or language impairment, and other health impairment. I've presented this information in the past. The distribution of students across these classifications really does, the numbers change, but the distribution stays very similar from year to year. What is changing, however, is our overall number of students with disabilities. So if you pay attention to the dark blue bar there, that represents preschool. The trend line shows an increase from the 1920 school year to present, and it's a year-to-date figure of about, the percent change is 40%. So there's a slight increase, not a slight increase, but an increase there. And preschool special ed is increasing a little more slower than 504 school age. So our school age increase is percent change from 1920 to current year to date is 50%, and 504s is 73%. So I started this kind of trend line at the 1920 school year. That was the year that COVID occurred. In years past, I've really done a retrospective of about 10 years. I just felt like that was a lot of information. But when I look back at it, the years before COVID were sort of stable. I would say that the fluctuations were commensurate with overall enrollment. Since COVID, there are definitely increases. I cannot tell you that that's caused by COVID, but I can just clearly see, as you can, there's a correlation. So how do we bring students into special education? So there's a couple of different ways. One would be students transfer into our district already identified with IEPs. I can't really explain why the trend of transfer in is increasing to the extent that it is, but that is data from over the last 5 years to year to date. The second way we get students into special ed is really through a referral process, and there's two different prongs to that. There's an in-school process, which really happens through our student assistance teams at the building levels, and that would be represented by the dark blue line. And you can see the trend line there, that's pretty stable over time. The orange bar represents parents who make direct referrals to CSE, and there has been a significant increase in that since the 1920 school year. So that is really a parent contacting my office, me directly, and saying, I'm concerned about my child and I want them evaluated. And I feel that that trend is definitely, you can see on the rise, and I think parents are really reaching out for help for their children. On the other side of that, how do we exit students from special education? That also occurs in a couple of different ways. Students can transfer out of the district, or they are exited through graduation, or unfortunately sometimes through dropping out. The light blue bar there represents students that have exited in that manner over time, and the second way students can exit special education is they are declassified through a prescribed process of reevaluation. So that means new testing, looking at progress monitoring, and that reevaluation is mandated to occur at least every 3 years for students in special education, and that orange bar just represents a total of those two combined. Just back to that really quickly, the last chunk of data there again is year to date. We're going to have more students that exit by the end of the year, so those trend lines are going to flatten out a little bit. So how do we make these decisions for students? And my intention, don't worry, is not to read this entire slide to you. But the process is the Committee on Special Education for preschool students. It's the Committee on Preschool Special Education. It is a formal mandated process through the State Education Department. Why I'm showing you this is I really want you to just appreciate the detail of required membership for every student that we meet on. There are also driving questions that we have to consider at each meeting for every student, and those would be, for example, are we evaluating comprehensively? Do we have knowledge of instruction that's received in general education? Are we considering all aspects about students and their needs? Are we considering unique student information? Are we effectively eliciting parent partnership and input? And are we making sure we're placing students in the least restrictive environment? And just a little bit about these meetings. There's a lot of them, and I crunched some numbers, and numbers change all the time. But so far this year, we've had 323 meetings of the Committee on Special Education, with 73 more to go. So we're going to be right at around 400 by the end of the year. Preschool is going to be around 92 meetings across the course of the year. 504, there's 77 already been held and more being scheduled. And there's another meeting process that's called manifestation determination, and we've held 7 of those this year. So grand total, across the school year, we're sitting at about 570 meetings throughout the course of the year. These meetings are important, they're critical to our process, and they're just an important piece, so I guess that's what I wanted to drive home. Least restrictive environment, again, is a significant driver of special education decision-making. So 100% of the time when we meet and discuss students, we are striving to keep our students in general education to the extent possible with supports, or we're, working to keep them here or as close as possible to their home. So Kate, you can go to the next slide. So this is just a depiction of least restrictive environment. 88% of our students with disabilities are here in our in-district run programs. Outside placements, 6% are in BOCES Special Ed, 3% are in BOCES Gen Ed. Those would be programs like alternative education, WAVE, I can't think of other ones, but some of the BOCES general ed, or career and tech ed with special ed support. And then we have a number of students, small numbers, 1% or fewer, in some other placements such as Victory Academy, Summit Center, other public schools, home instruction, which would be kids that we have placed on home instruction while they're awaiting a more specialized placement, or homeschool. And, you know, so who's doing the good work here of special education in Fredonia? This is just a depiction of our staffing. We have 27 instructional positions distributed across buildings, as you can see there. And we have 19 related services or pupil personnel services staff, which would include pupil personnel, school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists. To make all of these things work, all of these meetings, all the paperwork, I have 2 excellent, remarkable clerical staff in my office, and administratively, there is 1 director of special education for the district. So I wanted to talk a little bit about related services. So this doesn't tell the whole picture, but I guess I'm just giving you up there. These are the caseloads of our therapists, so you can read those numbers. But what I want to talk about a little bit is caseload versus workload. So, you know, if you average it out, our OTs are seeing about 24 kids per therapist. Our speech are seeing about 35. Our counselors are really distributing those kids across building levels based on goodness of fit. For the kids in OT, PT, and speech, most of those students are receiving therapy at least twice a week. Some services are provided individually, some in groups. Scheduling is really challenging for that because our therapists have to work their schedules around the school day and around other mandates because there's lots of them, right? So, you know, it's a tough, it's a challenge every year to kind of get all this to work and orchestrate all of it. Our related service staff are also on a regular basis conducting new student screens. They're doing evaluations, they're doing re-evaluations, they're writing a report for every one of those evaluations that they're doing. They are writing case notes for every child that they see, and those case notes are important because, you know, Mr. Forbes talked a little bit about, he called it Medicare, it's actually Medicaid. Our therapists are able to bill Medicaid for services under what's called the School Supported Health Services Plan because those OT, PT, speech, and counseling are seen as medically necessary for our special ed students to have access to education. So they have to write a case note for every child that they see so that Medicaid billing can take place. They also attend meetings, they write IEPs, they progress monitor goals. So there's a lot that goes on in this world. You know, the number of students with IEPs has increased significantly over time. Therefore, the number of students requiring related services has also increased. And with those mandated services, there's less time for our folks to provide preventative services, interventions, improvement groups. So, you know, we've added some self-contained classrooms at the primary and elementary grades. Almost all of the students in those classrooms, that would be our 611, our 811, our 1211, excuse me, receive 1 or more related services. So that really just kind of compounds the challenges of fitting these kids into a schedule. So I just, you know, I feel like that's an important piece to understand. I'm going to shift a little bit to talking about state performance plans. So the state performance plan indicators are public school districts' accountability measures to the state education department. So we're accountable to state ed to ensure that we are meeting the requirements and purposes of the federal education law that governs special education, or the IDEA. So on the next slide, you will see there's a list of 17 different performance plan indicators. Some are compliance indicators, some are results indicators. So the ones that are in black type are collected via standard data submission and reporting. It just kind of happens through different mechanisms every year. The indicators in red they require a more active reporting process, so we have to actually do some things. Every district does, and they're spread out across a 6-year cycle for every district. So this year, I have got a couple of things highlighted there. 24-25 school year this year, our indicator is preschool outcomes, so that means we're reporting on the effectiveness of our preschool special ed services. So that is done by a pre-service rating of students, and then when they're finished with their preschool services, we do a post survey, and we submit that data to state ed, and we see that we've had effective services. Next year, we are going to be responsible for indicator 8, which is parental involvement in the special education process. So this is really state ed measuring how we have partnered with parents, how we've involved them in decisions regarding their students with special education needs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Indicator 2 at the top, that is one that it's a data collection indicator, but, and I may have mentioned this in the past, we were cited, Kate, if you can switch to the next slide, for the 23-24 school year as not having met our target in students with disabilities dropping out. So we had too many students with disabilities that dropped out of school. That citation resulted in what has been a year-long process called the TSG, or Targeted Skills Group. So I have had to coordinate a group, which really involves high school personnel and administration, and we meet with representatives from state ed and other districts that are also in this targeted skills group. These meetings have all been done by Zoom, but they've been done about every other month. They're pretty time consuming, and we are invested in a pathway change process. And what we focused on in our particular district is giving our students with disabilities better opportunities to have some work-based learning opportunities, to have a path to a CDOS credential, which is Career Development and Occupational Standards, so that they are, I guess, more invested in their secondary education, and that we give them some skills that they need if they're not college bound, or even if they are college bound, to enter into the workforce and have a really quality skill set. So back to indicator 8, which is the parent involvement. That's our indicator for this year. We also are starting a targeted skills group for that indicator. So the targeted skills group for indicator 2 is a reactive. It's a reaction to data that's been collected. Indicator 8 targeted skills group is proactive. So state ed is saying, okay, every district next year that has to do parent involvement in the special ed process, we're going to meet with you before you start that. And we are going to talk with you about best practices in partnering with parents, and the way that this partnership is measured is through a survey that we have to give to parents at meetings. They submit it back. We have to get a certain percentage of surveys back, and state that looks at the data from those surveys and tells us how well parents are rating us and our efforts to partner with them. So that's some of the important work that we do. And then really just a couple of highlights. So some of the things that, in my opinion, and it's really hard to kind of think through all the things that happen and like what am I really proud of. Over the last couple of years, we have developed some additional instructional mechanisms at the high school. We have 15 classes now, which are self-contained. In other words, just special ed students in a class taught by a special ed teacher. So we haven't had the opportunity to do this so robustly in the past, but we're instructing our special ed students that need it in a small group for ELA, math, science, and social studies at the high school. Those kids are earning credits for those classes, and they're really meeting with success. We're expanding those CDOS credential options and exploration for high school students. Amanda Laredo is our transition coordinator, and she's really doing some remarkable things. She's linking our kids with Access VR, which is a state ed arm of state ed that helps our students with disabilities find jobs. They provide job coaching, they provide career counseling, they'll even provide driver training so that our kids can get jobs and get there. She also has a program from the Resource Center called Promote Youth coming into the building. They're working with kids in the classroom and resource rooms to really talk about workplace readiness, career exploration, and really supporting students directly in those endeavors. And we're providing some in-house work opportunities for our kids. So some of our kids are working in the print shop, they're working in the cafeteria, they're working in the locker stop, the school store, they're working in the tech office, which now has a student desk. So some nice opportunities for kids, and we're looking to grow those. And then Kristen Tomaszewski, as you know, is really the voice of unified sports, unified clubs. So kids this year have engaged in bocce, bowling, curling, basketball, unified physical education, the unified club. We are a unified banner school this year, and the list continues to grow. There's just been a lot of excitement there. between some meaningful inclusive events like the Polar Plunge and the Buffalo Bowl, our students have our community has raised over $35,000 over the last 4 years for special education, or Special Olympics of New York State. Again, we're a National Banner Recognition School this year. We've met 10 standards of excellence, which is a rigorous process, and standards related to unified sports programs, inclusive youth leadership, and whole school engagement. So just a lot of really good things happening there, and there's some pictures to highlight some of the great things that have been happening. So I am happy to follow up on anything that anybody would like me to, so
Great.
thank you for your time.
Any comments, questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Paschke?
Is it okay if I pop from one?
Please do.
This is just something I think the board needs to know and understand about Kristen and the team that's worked on this targeted skills group. This has been an opportunity to grow for us in the sense that we could have approached this as the number of students was something like 2.
It was a small number.
It
And
was-
every student is a percentage in a district our size, so.
And it was, I think we could have approached this as, hey, these are kids that are in outside programs, don't even attend here, and there was only a couple of them. Let's not really engage, in this process. But I think from the get-go, the entire team saw this as an opportunity to say, hey, what do we do and how do we make it better anyway? And I just want to applaud Kristen for leading that, because she came into it with that attitude, and it was contagious, and the group kind of got on fire with it. And some of the things that are up there are a direct result of this targeted skills group. So I think that was an amazing outcome of this, even though it's difficult to really affect things that are going on in programs outside of our school. It made us think, well, maybe if we had some programming here that would be more effective for kids, that we wouldn't have to send them out. We might be able to keep them here and then keep them in school. So just kudos to you, Kristen. Great job.
Thank you for your support, I appreciate it.
You may have spoke on this. I was writing something down when you went past the slide 7, Ms. Morrison, slide number 7. It's on the transfers and new referrals. I retired from teaching in 2018, so just before this graph illustrates, but is it fair to say that things have changed in the 7 years I've been out in terms of what's happening here? And what are the numbers on the left-hand side? Are they the numbers of like 20 students? You have 0, 10, 20, 30?
Oh, geez, maybe that might be a mistake.
That might be, okay, well,
No, I
anyway.
don't think it is, that's correct, yeah,
Okay, well,
never mind. I had to think about how I set that graph up,
I
but
guess
that's right.
my question is the light blue are transfers, so obviously a transfer is somebody that's come into the school.
Well, so in this case, somebody that transfers into our district and already is identified as a special education student.
Okay.
So when that happens, we have an obligation to really align that IEP they're coming in with as best we can to comparative services, because every district does things a little bit differently.
Right.
So we compare what they're coming in with what we have. A lot of times I make phone calls to the previous district, talk to them if it's not real clear, and figure out how we are going to place them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's striking with transfers.
Yeah,
There's a lot of,
it's interesting, and
IEPs.
I can't explain why that number is increased. Maybe it's just attracting a lot of new students, I don't know.
yeah, we're attracting new students, that's great. They do have some needs, it looks like. It's a juggling process as the board and administration to balance the staffing and
Absolutely.
the revenue. So it looks like it's fair to say that it's a little different from 2018 when I retired in terms of number of students coming in.
Yeah, and I don't think in talking to my colleagues in other districts, we're not alone. I think the numbers of special ed are increasing, in all over the place. And like I said, I can't tell you that it's related to COVID, or that it's caused by COVID, but I can see a relationship there in the aftermath of that, of the increases.
And could you go to the next slide? Because that was, is that the retention? is exiting, so we're having less.
You know, it appears that way, but again, that last group of data from 24, 25, that blue bar is going to increase because we're gonna exit more kids.
Right, okay.
You know, so I don't know that that we have a lot less kids leaving than coming in. I mean, I think there's some truth to that, but that trend line is not going to be, that slope's gonna change.
There may not be the trend
Right.
there. Okay. Thank you. Any other
You're
questions from the board? Thank you.
Yeah, just, oops, sorry, can you talk about, at Wheelock, we have a dozen instructional support staff, or, I'm sorry, instructional staff there.
And that's Wheelock and elementary.
Wheelock and elementary,
Yes.
sorry. So as you progress through the grades, we have fewer and fewer. Why the heavier concentration at the younger age?
You know, that's a great question, and you can chime in if you'd like to too. But, you know, with our younger kids, I would say, especially at your building, a lot of them are coming in identified with needs, and their readiness is not there, and we find that we need to put a lot of our younger kids in self-contained settings. So in other words, just special ed kids in a small group with a special education teacher. So there's more self-contained at the elementary and primary grades than there are at middle school and high school. So that's why we see that higher concentration. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's very fair. I'd also say that we have an epidemic at the preschool level and that we don't have providers. And part of the reason that we're adding a classroom at preschool next year is because we have many, many students who need services who are not getting them. So when they come to school age, they've either been at home or not received services that were indicated that they needed it at age 2, age 3, and age 4. And those skills, those gaps just grow and grow and grow. Whereas early intervention, if we were able to address those issues when they were this big, a lot of the declassification would be much higher, but because we aren't addressing those issues, that gap is growing. And so we have many kids entering, and Krista and I will sit on meetings together, that they are at home, and they should have been in a classroom, or they should have been receiving services, and they have not. It's an epidemic.
So a little bit of investment at the younger age is gonna pay
100%.
dividends as they
Absolutely.
age through our system.
Absolutely.
Right, any other questions from the board? Well, thank you, Ms. Farrell.
Thanks so very much.
Ms. Piper for chiming in, and Mr. Foster. So, that ends our special presentation on special ed. Now we move into music education with Ms. Gibbon.
Hello. It's nice to see you again. If you don't know me, my name is Andrew Bennett, and I am the music department instructional leader. I'm so excited to talk to you about our wonderful music program today. So I want to start by saying in the fall, our district population was 1,424 students in grades K through 12, and of that, 1,160 of them were enrolled in a music class. So that's roughly 81% of the district population took at least one music course. Now, a lot of people know us by our ensembles, so I want to talk about that. Our ensembles are either curricular ensembles. These are music groups that meet during the school day for an academic grade, or extracurricular ensembles. These are like our middle school musical, our high school musical, our jazz ensembles, anything that happens outside of the school day. Our numbers continue to grow. We're at 916 students participating in our curricular performing ensembles. That means every week, rain or shine, there's almost 1,000 Fredonia students receiving instruction in 3 rooms. And our extracurricular participation is at about 519 students. So just in perspective, 916 students is more than we had back in the 90s and 2000s, even though the district population has changed. And we never had that high of level of extracurricular music participation. I definitely credit that to Mr. Wendell, who I hate to compliment, with the middle school musical, and the addition of a lot of other extracurricular music ensembles at the different buildings in different areas. All right, now this is brief summary, but I discovered as I do this every year, to fit in the highlights, I have to get a smaller font. So don't worry, I got better glasses, I can do this. So for the 12th year in a row, we were recognized as a best community for music education. That is a national honor that only about 2 to 3% of schools in the country receive. We had over 200 students perform solos at Chautauqua County and state level solo festivals in 2024. That number is going to be even higher for next year. So is this one. We had 187 students earn places in state and county honor ensembles. That's through competitive auditions, which as you can see is almost every student who plays a solo for us. That's great. Other schools would love that. That does include one all-state musician and alternate. Grant Abbey made all-state for us, and we had an alternate with Galen Gottinger. Just to give you a perspective, we're at a point in the state where about 400 students will receive 100 on an all-state solo and not be selected. It is an incredibly competitive process where essentially you have to be the top 100 in the room at your festival. There are tens of thousands of students trying to get these spots, so we are so proud of Grant and Galen for their honors. This is a big win. The Shays Musical Theater Awards, we participated in that last year. Now that is open to school districts of every size in Western New York. There are no classifications based on school size or level. And out of the, I think there were over 20 schools that participated in that, we were recognized as third place for the best musical. And that is against schools that dwarf us in population. That is through competitive evaluation. We saw multiple versions of our show. There are very detailed write-ups, and because of that, we were able to receive $1,500 in grants, and also a little bit of bragging rights, which we'll definitely take. We continue to offer a rigorous college credit sequence in music worth 9 credits. I want to point out that the last time we offered the AP Music Theory exam, 90% of the students earned credit. That was 28% higher than the state average and 30% higher than the global average. We hope to improve that on Monday when the next exam happens. We continue to strengthen our partnerships with SUNY Fredonia and other cultural institutions. Our summer lesson program continues to grow. Thank you for approving it for this summer as well. We had over 80 students participate. For the 3rd year in a row, the high school chorus performed with college students and renowned guest conductors at the SUNY Fredonia Choral Festival. It began as something where they're going to rotate through different choruses, and now they liked Ryan's chorus so much, that is the high school chorus they will use forever. We're very lucky to have a wonderful team of teachers, except for me, really. We serve as clinicians, guest conductors, speakers all over the state. I know Mrs. Trey's conducted some honor ensembles. I've had some opportunities to do that. We're really happy we can share our wonderful teachers with other student musicians. Last year we had 6 ensembles perform at the NISMA Major Organization Festival, all earned gold or silver. Our 4th grade select chorus took 1st place at Daring Lake Music Festival for the 2nd year in a row, and I know Mrs. Harton is hopeful it'll be a 3-peat. I know. 5th and 6th grade orchestra students are participating in the All-County Spring Festival at the Chautauqua Institution for the first time! Exclamation point. Uh-oh. Here we go. All right. And we've invited many guest artists to work with students, including musicians from the Buffalo Philharmonic, George Mason University. We had the Navy Commodores out here this fall, which was unbelievable. We brought in a saxophone player with a college from Australia. What a cool accent and amazing player, for people who know people in Australia. And even more. Oh, sorry, I gotta go back to this one. So we started streaming during the American Rescue Plan. We had over 4,700 streams of concerts. I just blew my mind, and Kevin does such a good job organizing this and sending these out to the community, but that's about 2,600 more than we had last year. So we are very glad that we can offer this as a way for members of our community to participate in our students' achievements, whether they can make it in our doors or not. We believe that in addition to being a good musician, we want our students to be good people. So we invest a lot in character education. We're continuing to offer our peer mentorship program in string, chorus, and band buddies. Roughly 50 students participated in these programs this year, allowing a meaningful mentorship experience for both our high school and young students. We have had to limit this program slightly because our space is running out. But I definitely want to give full credit to Mrs. Trey who got us started on that. 14 new students were inducted into the Tri-M National Music Honor Society. That brings our chapter to a record high enrollment of 55 students! Exclamation point. Tri-M members continue to inspire and connect with our youngest students through providing invitations to our Pops concert and really developing more of these relationships cross-level, so they feel like they're part of a music family for their entire time here. The Tri-M chapter partnered with PUNT this year, a foundation that serves families in Western New York facing pediatric cancer diagnoses. The chapter raised over $1,000 this year and raffled off a signed Dawson Knox glove. And over 30 student musicians performed regularly at the Next Chapter bookstore this year, providing music to patrons, students, and community members. I'll give them credit, Mrs. Trey is such a great advisor, but a lot of these the students are organizing themselves, which especially as we look into leader and retraining is certainly the kind of activities we're hoping to continue to pursue. Other examples of reaching out to the community. Students performed at the Chicago Literacy Volunteers Workshop. Our band was at the Village of Fredonia's Halloween Trunk or Treat. They always have more creative costumes than me. Our middle and high school chamber groups were still at the bookstore. 4th grade Hillbilly Harmonics sang throughout Western New York, Shop Institution, SUNY Fredonia, PTO events, Darien Lake, and more. And our high school students were able to spend time playing at Fredonia Place. That's always one of their favorite concerts of the year. They pack the hall for us. And it's just so nice to be able to see, again, parts of our community that can't get to our performances. I want to give credit to the board again for supporting the school instrument usage program. Our program to continue to provide instruments to families who economically are in need has only grown. We are in our 9th year of doing this. Started with 20, 38, 47, 58, 63, 77, 99, 127, and this year, 165 students were able to participate in music who would not be able to participate without this program. And I talk to these families all the time. They were many times not able to participate in music before, and they thought this would be an opportunity they would never be able to provide to their children, and because of your investments, they are. And those students typically remain with us for a very long time, if not their whole time, so it's wonderful that we were able to do that. I'll say, as you know, storage ensemble spaces continue to be an issue as we significantly increase the size of our instrumental groups. You've probably seen the racks in the hallways and everything, but we're all on the same board about that. We look forward to continuing discussions with the administration on this topic. And that's it. In conclusion, this goes without saying, but it's worth repeating. We are very proud of our students and grateful to our district and community. Fredonia is a special place. I'm so happy to live here. We look forward to working together to serve our growing enrollments. Next year's enrollments are projected to continue to increase. That is one advantage of me doing the presentation later in the year is I can tell you this trend continues. We continue to search for new and exciting experiences for our students and community, and I wouldn't be a music teacher worth myself if I didn't advertise our next events. So next week we have a very special event at the college. On May 13th, we partnered with them to put on our spring advanced music performance recital. These are students who are playing college level works. With a Cumnus, it's really a very unique thing that I'm glad we offer. And then I put up our high school, elementary school concerts, and our 3 middle school concerts, and the elementary string recital. And always you can find up-to-date information, including our online calendar events on our website, or follow us on X and Facebook. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Any comments from the board or questions?
I worked for years, still work in higher ed. The stat you put up about AP Music, that's insane. Like, that's a great thing, because I used to look at those scores all the time, and it was very uncommon to see a student taking an AP Music Theory and getting the 3 or higher. 2 was a very common score, so the fact that I think you had 90%, somewhere 90%, that's mind-blowing. And then on top of that, tons of correlation between students who take music performing better in math and English and science. So the greater the percentage of students we have taking music, the better it is for the university. So thanks to you and to all the music staff for all the hard work you do.
Thank you very much.
Anything else, or? My mother loves it when you bring ensembles to Fredonia Place. She loves that. And, thank you for your can-do, positive attitude. Nothing's too small for you. And
we have a great
it's
team.
reflected in your program, your staff and the students. And thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, on the housekeeping, into finance, financial treasurer's reports. No treasurer's report tonight, but we do need to approve a contract with Children's Educational Services for occupational therapy services at a cost of $7,200. So if I could have a motion to bring that to the table.
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, Mr. Marshall is second. Dr. Zoliak or Mr. Forbes? What's that?
Oh, yeah, just another way in which we're able to meet student needs. As was mentioned, we are seeking a variety of providers and vendors in the area to help address the issues that are presented each year within the district. So I appreciate the work of Mrs. Farrell to find those vendors and find those services. And make accommodations as needed, so thank you.
Okay, great. Any questions from the board? Or all in favor? Opposed? We need to approve the contract with Buffalo Hearing and Speech for music and speech therapy services as presented. Can I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So
Mr.
moved.
Marshall, a second?
Second.
Ms. Ford, thank you. Mr. Forbes, Dr. Zoliaks?
Similar situation, I believe, Mrs. Farrow, these services are more as needed, and not necessarily a prescribed amount in the moment, but again, gives us some flexibility and additional services as needed.
Actually, just kind of a quick correction, but so we do have two students that do receive music therapy currently, and we contract that through Buffalo Hearing and Speech, as well as speech therapy for a homeschooled student. So those are actually specific needs, but there's the potential that those needs will ebb and flow as well.
Gotcha, thank you.
Great. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And finally, we need to approve the resolution for the 2025-26 BOCES Services Commitment Statement. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Ms. Gordon, Ms. Hahn, second. Any questions on, or I'm sorry, Dr. Zoliaks, anything on this?
As you know, we contract with BOCES for a number of things across the district each year. We do go line by line through those services, make sure they're being utilized, make sure they're valuable, make sure we still have students who tap into those services, or adults, or part of our program. It is reviewed very thoroughly, and at the end of the day, they're just looking for a commitment that we're ready to take on those services again in the coming school year.
Great. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Personnel, all in consent, that's a rarity. New business, though, we have one item. We need to approve a resolution regarding workers at the budget vote. I think I'll go through the entire section there. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Marshall?
Second.
Ms. Hahn, thank you. Dr. Zoliaks, anything on this to speak on?
Yeah, thanks to Kate for her work here, who puts the vote together. This is pretty much an annual resolution, no changes. We appreciate everybody who comes in and helps us get this done, and typically very organized and thorough in what they do. And we look forward to seeing people on May 20th.
Okay. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Wow, okay, that's in consent. So yeah, we're to the, our second hearing for the public. I'll go through the entire paragraph. It's name, address, 5 minutes. Could be on anything. Ms. Days, you want to continue?
Thank you. I wanted to state again, it's not meant to be adversarial, it's for what I stated before. And the purpose of going down memory lane before, if I didn't make it clear, was to show the drastic decline in population through the decades. And money, throwing money at things often is not what it takes. Don't count this as part of my assignment. Stop a moment, because I want to speak to Andy Bennett. Okay, so many things don't cost money. It could be teacher enthusiasm, and you wouldn't know this, Andy, but I was one of your biggest supporters of when kids would go off to music lessons that time of the day when then other kids were in study hall. I cracked the whip in study hall. I said, you're going to do work here because your peers are going off learning a second language. And that's exactly what I called it. And that's difficult. And I also said that's why I was an advocate of cursive handwriting. And I told the students it's because it activates areas of your brain beneficial in your life, similar to reading, to read music and perform music. You wouldn't know that, but that's okay. But it's not money that did it. It's, the enthusiasm. So I'll start my time again. Okay, so at the last board meeting, I quoted some comments from the meeting I had missed, one of which included superintendent cautioned against cutting, quote, any of the positions, especially without further evaluation, end quote. I question why this wasn't an ongoing discussion throughout the year. Why wait to the last minute? It's also perplexing because this was the same thing that was said to me almost a year ago when I was retiring. It had to be studied. What's going on? A response to me last week was paraphrasing something I said at another meeting, that student achievement is directly related to teachers working in the trenches. While I stand by that, this response was not related to the financial argument I was making. Teachers are the ones who work and make a difference. You just don't need the current numbers and still have small class sizes. The continued response about student clubs and such also did not relate. 2, at the last meeting, I also quoted prior meeting minutes that said the board shared a desire moving forward to have earlier discussions in the coming years to evaluate staffing throughout the district, building principals and such. Last week I stated I was shocked by this statement and asked when did that stop happening. In my experience in the past 40 years plus, that was a common practice and was an embarrassment from a business standpoint to not occur. If it does occur, that's not what the quote said. This response that everyone is working hard seemed cliché to me. 3, I was encouraged that someone on the board at least looked into the possibility of conducting a confidential survey that I recommended to the teachers to collect unfiltered information about problems and the climate within the district. I recollect a reason was given last week that it's not our role. At another time, I would like to discuss this because a quick answer I researched said, quote, yes, a local New York State school board can conduct a survey of teachers to assess morale and other topics related to the district. School boards have the authority to gather information to inform their decision-making and improve district operations, including employee satisfaction and workplace conditions, end quote. The source stated there are compliance issues such as bargaining agreements, privacy regulations, and such, so it would take some work. I say this is a worthy endeavor because doesn't the buck stop with you, really, ultimately, the school board? You might have a scenario of lots of canaries singing, but ultimately this could lead to improvement in many areas. Don't you want direct feedback? 4, speaking of surveys, one from the board would be different, so participation would likely be higher. Many teachers don't even bother, this is my experience, okay? Many teachers don't even bother to fill out surveys after professional development activities and such because they rarely get much, if any, feedback. Additionally, many professional development seminars days are deemed gimmicky and a waste of time, so there is little buy-in. Whatever the new thing is, it dies quickly with little follow-through, sometimes not even lip service. They are certainly overpriced and a waste of money, regardless of who is paying for it. Save the money. Good teachers do their own ongoing development. Related to this, there was too much time spent at the last meeting discussing half-days in conflict with professional development. Do the state-required ones before the school year starts for students, but no more than what is required. Cut out the half-days and students will come to school. 5, finally, spend more time on asking tough questions about the hard reality of the economics of village residents. Why student achievement continues to be stagnant and below state average, why morale is low, how to cut out waste and redundancy, etc. It's pleasant to hear roundtable reports of upcoming events, but smiling and congratulating everyone has to be balanced with addressing very real problems openly discussed. Until this happens, support from residents will continue to wane. As usual, there may be low turnout for the budget vote, which is probably what you count on, but don't take it passing as a sign of approval. Time will tell. Start thinking of the future beyond next year. In parentheses I have, this thought makes me think back to the disaster of Vision 2000 over 25 years ago that left the district with huge unused building spaces that now have to be maintained, most evident at Wheelock and the high school. A projected enrollment study must have been a neglected oversight on that one. The answer can't continue to punish and demand more and more money from the fewer residents who try to hold on. Now, I don't know how you'll spin the budget in your upcoming flyer. John, there's all these moving numbers. I can't claim to understand them, but from what I can gather, your budget is really up over 5% from last year. If you had the same tax levy as last year, which would be 0, say, increase, the budget still would be up over 4%, which would be plenty to cover Proposition 1 with an extra 2% plus for yourselves. It doesn't matter if state aid is 8% more this year, is what I could gather. You haven't tightened your belt at all in any significant way. So that's my opinion, that's a matter of, and it's my time, so I thank you for your time. I will dismiss myself because I have some farm chores, evening farm chores I need to attend to. But I would like a question, if you could answer, how people get absentee ballots for the upcoming vote? What's the procedure? I don't know.
They have to apply for the absentee ballot if they're not on the permanent list. They fill out an application, and if they are in the office when they do it, they're handed an absentee ballot. If they choose to mail in the application, then the absentee ballot is mailed to them.
So how do they get an absentee ballot if they're not here? I mean, how do they apply?
They call the
They
office
call.
and mail it to them, or they can email and request it, but the paperwork has to be done.
So you just have to send paperwork to them
Yes.
wherever they are,
Correct.
even if it's overseas?
If they are overseas and already a listed military ballot, then I have already sent it to them.
Okay, all right, so they have to call in, you send paper, is there enough time to do that?
Yes, there is, and
Okay.
we have New York State guidelines for that, I don't get to pick
So they,
that.
yeah, but no, so they call in,
Yep,
you send them paperwork and they send it back?
yes,
Okay.
and then they either get mailed the ballot, or they.
Oh, so
pick it
that's
up
2
with-
times in the mail. Ooh,
That is
better
correct.
get chopping
That's what
on
New York
that.
State requires.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
The deadline for the application, May 13th. Oh, the absentee ballot, to apply for an absentee ballot, the application is due May 13th.
13, today's the 6th,
That
okay.
is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, well, again, I have to,
Thank you, Ms. Stacy.
thank you.
Anybody else like to speak to the board tonight in general comment? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is Happy News. Susan Honeychurch, physical therapist for the district. I live at 150 Central Avenue in Fredonia. I just wanted to say that Joanne Folletta this morning on the classical music station was honoring teachers. And to collaborate with what you had said, corroborate I should say, when you do take music lessons or play an instrument, you stay in school. And most of the people that play instruments go on to higher education. So it is extremely valuable, and you know I'm in your corner every day. So I appreciated your comment, because that's exactly what she said this morning on the radio, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Oh, Susan Honeychurch?
Honeychurch. Thank you, Ms. Honeychurch.
You're welcome.
Would anybody else like to speak to the board tonight in general comment? All good? Okay. Well, we're moving on to the superintendent report. Dr. Zoliaks.
Yeah, I just have a few things. Wanted to touch on one of the things that Mr. Forbes mentioned, that, again, New York State budget has not been solidified, so we are still waiting on some fine tuning of those 8 numbers, and we look forward to that, hopefully sooner rather than later. Also in consent tonight was 2 resignations I wanted to mention. One is Val McCullough, who actually came on board here in 1998 in food service, and then transitioned over to an aide. I just want to recognize her and appreciate all of her hard work over several years. Perhaps in the roundtable you could touch on Val's work, Mrs. Piper, that would be appreciated. Also from our high school science department, sadly, Jenny Beekner is moving on to another position. She has been here since 2011. Just a very solid, polite, friendly, welcoming, knowledgeable, excellent instructor in our district, again, over several years. She will definitely be missed, and I just wanted to recognize her tonight. I was hoping Mr. Paschke would be here to share a few thoughts, and perhaps we'll do that at a future meeting. But thank you to both Val and Jenny. Very much appreciate everything they've done for the district, and best of luck as they move on, either into retirement or into the new position. You know, we do look in the district to balance out and really look at the whole child, and I think what's happened at our board meetings over the last several meetings, we talked a little bit about data and those educational pieces. Talked a little bit about special education tonight and some data that's within that work. We've had a music presentation, and if you've been looking at the Observer lately, you can tell that the spring sports season is alive and well, and there's a lot going on. One of the nice things is that in Fredonia, our student athletes cross over into a lot of other activities, including our music program. So we're happy to see students involved in a diverse array of activities as they experience their middle high school education. Softball went to the Binghamton tournament this past weekend, which is great. They also had a win over Jamestown and Dunkirk recently. Baseball has had some pretty big wins lately, one over Pioneer, who I believe at the time was ranked 7th in the state, as well as Salamanca, Hutch Tech, and Dunkirk. So nice job, baseball. Our golf season is going well. You will particularly see a young lady and a young man who are doing particularly well and seem to be winning at a rate far above most people in the county, so congrats to both of them as well as the golf team. Our girls flag has had wins over Will North as well as Health Sciences from Buffalo recently, and both of those games, the weather conditions weren't ideal, so nice job kind of toughing it out in some rain and wind and mud. Also, our unified basketball team had a win over Casadega last week. I believe they also have an assembly coming up this Friday. That's here during the school day, which is a fantastic event. If any of our board members could be present for that, feel free to come on in. Track is also off to a great start. We particularly have a young man in the hurdles, both 110 and 400, who's doing very well. We also have another young man doing an awesome job in the triple jump. Our girls track had a win over Faulkner Casadega recently, and in that meet, 7 of our young ladies won events. So nice job to those in track. Our tennis team, again, continuing the tradition of doing really well. We have had 9 individuals win a match, either in singles or doubles so far this year. That includes one 7th grader who recently won a varsity match, so congrats to everyone on the tennis team. And even going back to the winter sports, we did have a senior earn honorable mention recognition in Class B. Having said that, behind the scenes, we have all kinds of coaches spending a lot of time and energy, not only preparing for the seasons, but also during the seasons, practices, riding buses to and from games themselves, calling the paper, providing information, also probably thinking a little bit about the games we did well, as well as maybe the games we didn't do so well. So thank you to all of our coaches who are on staff, as well as a number of volunteer coaches who join us each year. Just wanted to say again, congrats and welcome to Ron Tonelli. There was another article in the paper recently welcoming him to the district. We continue to communicate as he gears up for July 1. He was nice enough to send an email through me to the high school staff, sharing his excitement about the job, and he's going to start working on some entry plan things here coming up soon. In terms of our calendar, which was also in consent tonight, one of the changes that we made for this coming year temporarily is that we did not include the half-days for elementary school on the school calendar for the moment at the end of the year in June. The reason for that is there is a want to move them all to the last few days of the school year, which isn't a bad idea. However, as Mr. Paschke mentioned in our last meeting, that does conflict and cause a little bit of a problem for students who would be taking Regents exams and would need to get home on those days. We're looking at how we could work that out. Right now, although the Regents Week has been designated, there is not a schedule of the exact exams for June 26th. So we're also waiting for that to understand how many students are we talking about, what exams are they. So we will approve the larger calendar with those. It's noted on the draft that we'll send out tomorrow that those are TBD at this point. So more information on that, and we will certainly announce that and communicate that as soon as we possibly can. Next meeting for superintendent's report, we'll talk a little bit about the strategic plan and updates in those various categories. And thanks for everybody for coming tonight. And we keep moving forward. We're excited about this next month that includes not only a lot of sporting events, a lot of concerts, a lot of celebrations, a lot of ceremonies, a lot of traditions, which culminates at the very end of June with commencement. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Zavaks. Any comments, questions on the superintendent report? Okay, the annual budget vote and board education election will be held on Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, from 2 to 9 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. And the next regular Board of Education meeting will be the same day, Tuesday, May 20th, at 6 p.m. Here in the high school library. So before we get around to our administrators, any comments from the board, reflections? All good?
Just want to say thanks for great presentations. It's great service to our students and our community. You know, that really impacts our families and impacts the community, so I appreciate that. And the music program, as always, one of our favorite nights to hear about our outstanding music program, so thank you, Mr. Bennett, for that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Farrell, thank you tonight. Mr. Bennett, outstanding as usual. Speaking about, special programs in Fredonia, I had the pleasure to walk in the rain on Saturday. Remember the continuous rain all day? A 7-hour hike on the Quest program. Speaking of some special retired educators, the Cobbs. But in walking with them, I learned so much about the program and just the number of volunteers they have. And it's such a laundry list of volunteers, and they're just so eager to be out there, excited, helping, mentoring our students. What a great program, it's special. And just one last thing, I walked with Mr. Cobb for a while. We just had a hip replacement, I believe, or maybe it was a knee replacement. He's out there walking, doing the 7 hours, and my feet are wet in the first 10 minutes. But he went through the landowners, and every year they have to call every landowner. It's got to be like 100 landowners to get permission to cross their land. And if they have even one landowner that's changed ownership and they refuse, it blows the whole thing up. And he has to start over and find a new route with new landowners. So it's like the iceberg, the tip, and then underneath it, what they do is amazing. So that was really a neat experience. So we'll move on. Mr. Kashke has left the building.
Unexpectedly, yes.
I believe
Yes.
expectedly, okay. So Ms. Paul, I guess we'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. So I was going to share that our
Oh.
expedition for Quest, they were glad to have you join them on Saturday. I talked to the Cobbs today, but the one-day hike was on Saturday. 2-day will begin Friday and Saturday of this week. Hopefully the weather is an improvement over this weekend. We're hopeful for that. On the heels of your athletic report, our flag football team is currently up 18-6. So continuing on that winning streak. And Modified Sports is up and running also with rosters just being solidified as recently as today, including modified softball, baseball, track, and of course modified flag football, which has already had 2 games and they're undefeated as we speak. So, and just lastly, our Lisa Forbes and Shannon Marsh took some service learning club members to Fredonia Place last week to volunteer, so that was a nice way to make that connection between some community partnerships and our middle schoolers.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Dollinger.
So it's Teacher Appreciation Week today, if you don't know, so we appreciate everybody for coming to this and supporting your administrators and things like that. So along that theme, I appreciate April Hartung and our music department, because next week is the opera invasion, and that's a thing where they bring some professionals into the 3rd and 4th grades. They do a mini lesson in the classrooms. They teach them about instruments and music, and then we have a concert after that event. So that's pretty special, and the kids look forward to that each year. I appreciate our school counseling team and Ms. Piper for organizing our kindergarten visit. So in 2 weeks, we're shipping the kindergarten class up to the big school, and we do a little, we give them a tour. I do a science experiment, we take them to the playground, we feed them a little bit, they get to know the 1st grade teachers and things like that, but it kind of helps bridge the gap, so we appreciate your teachers. And then lastly, I appreciate our RTI teachers, because anytime we go on a break, whether it's winter or spring or summer, they do some sort of reading challenge, and this Friday is the spring break reading challenge, and they created an obstacles course in the building. They get a snack, so you had to read so many books over break to get the prize. So we appreciate all the teachers in the building.
Great, thank you, Mr. Dollinger. Thank you. Ms. Farrell, anything else tonight?
Sure, a couple of things. I wanted to give proper recognition to some folks in the audience. So Susan Honeychurch, Jen Christie, and Sue Goss are here. They are part of our related services team here. So PT, OT, and speech. So thank you for coming and participating and providing me with information that helped.
Ovation.
Also wanted to say, I mentioned this last time, the local Special Olympics event that's held on the Fredonia College campus will be May 28th. We are gearing up for that. We're collecting rosters and, kind of putting the information together for that. And if you are interested in that unified assembly and the basketball game, it is at 1 o'clock on Friday in the high school gym. So, that's it.
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
1 p.m. Friday,
Yes.
high school gym?
Yes. I hope I'm right, but yes.
Send an email if it's not.
No, that's right.
Thank you, I'm glad.
Thank you. Verification.
Take some pictures.
Ms. Piper.
Yeah, just to back up what Dr. Z said about Val Matula, I remember Val starting in the cafeteria, expressing interest to me when I was elementary principal about moving into an aide position. She worked with us at the elementary school, and then when we transitioned back to WELAC, became one of our UBK aides. She worked actually with Mark Putney when he did the remote classroom during COVID, and has worked with Melissa Putney for the last couple of years, and she's just a joy. We're really going to miss her knowledge, her patience, her nurturing with the kids has been wonderful. So we will miss Val, and we're planning some things for her departure. I also want to say that April is the month of the young child, so we've been doing a lot of celebrations in recognition of our young students. Our young students have actually gotten together and have done things like clean up the outside classroom. They've been doing some things to give back to the community as well, so we're celebrating the month of the young child. I also want to recognize our principals. Last week was National Principals Day, so National Principal Appreciation Day, and I have to say I've had a rough year medically and have been in and out quite a bit, as you all know, and this team has been incredible. And I know Mrs. Farrow, we always count as part of our principals team, and I just have to put kudos out to this team because they've been very supportive and wonderful. They deserve a lot of recognition, so thank you to the team, and happy National Principals Appreciation Week. Our Teacher Appreciation Week at WELAC, we also are celebrating, we're following the Ted Lasso Believe theme, and are doing a little bit of celebration every day in honor of the amazing, wonderful work that they do every day with their kids. So.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, my granddaughter Val was my granddaughter's teacher aide, and she's fantastic. Well, a big loss.
Yeah, it is.
Big loss, but congratulations to her retirement. So, that's great. Dr. Wright.
Thank you. Yes, and we certainly appreciate all of our administrators and the team, and how everybody does take a team approach in all things, which is very appreciated. And for Teacher Appreciation Week, they are the ones who are doing the hard work to showcase in the building the appreciation. So that's the lift that they're doing. So again, kudos to all of you to make sure that your staff feels the love. And then I'd like to shout out to our PTO, our elementary and WELAC PTO, because they also do amazing things to support the schools and the teachers and make their way around all of us, so a huge shout out in recognition of all the work they do all year long. I also wanted to back up with a little bit of info that you may or may not be aware of. It's been a while now since we talked about COVID money. It's been over for a while, but to Ms. Honeychurch, yes, I mean, one of the things that we, one of the COVID money tenets was to increase attendance. And one of the ways through our wonderful music program was to be able to support with instruments and some music that could go their way, because we do have the data to show that our students come to school and get to enroll in music because we can support families who may not be able to otherwise afford instruments. And so that is a metric and data point that we were able to allocate funding from the COVID relief funds. So all of it goes together and works together, and so thank you for highlighting that. It's appreciated. Today was our first UPK3 attestation team meeting, and we met with the good folks from our new literacy curriculum, HMH into reading, that we're piloting. This year was kind of the soft year one. Next year is we can kind of dig into it. Now we lived it a little bit because our materials arrived like moments before school started. So it was exciting to all be together and to have this. So thank you again to Amy and Mark and Andrea Marsh, who are our administrative team with that. to partner with them, and then to our 13 members of the team. So that's really exciting to have representation with that. And then something that we don't often talk about, it dawned on me today from a couple conversations I've had recently, is that we have 3 teachers, I believe, currently who are going through getting their administrative certification. And that's something that, does happen, throughout the time, but we like to, we talk about always being lifelong learners and our mission statement applying to all people. And that's kind of an example of it that we don't really see. So I wanted to just highlight those who are stretching themselves to continue to become their greatest selves. And I think that that's really, exciting to know that we have people who choose to increase and do and take PD and often are doing things that many of us aren't even aware of. So just a shout out to that trickles to our students, and that's exciting. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Nothing, Ms. Morrison?
I'm all set.
You're all good? Okay. Okay, so let's see here. We do have executive tonight. We anticipate the need to enter into executive session to discuss collective bargaining agreements and personnel. Could I have a motion to enter executive?
So moved.
Mr. Marshall?
Second.
Ms. Hines, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're in executive session. Thank you everyone for coming. Students, feel free to come up. Anybody can sign the forms. Drive safely.
All of those like seats next to us.
Yes.